Hey folks, this is Vint with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to quickly check out the Oceania expansion for Wingspan. Now what you're looking at now is the digital version of the game. The tabletop version is a bit ahead of the digital platform. The tabletop versions include the core game, you've got the European expansion, the Oceania expansion, the Asia expansion, whereas the digital version is a bit behind. The digital version has the core game, the European expansion, and now the about to be released Oceania expansion. I'm recording this content a day or two prior to the Oceania expansion launch, so it goes without saying that what you're looking at should be reflective of the finished product, but there might be a last minute patch or two that might address some things. But there is no Asia expansion yet on the digital platform. So, what is Wingspan? Well, this is an engine builder style tabletop game where you're going to be spending various resources, namely food, like berries and worms and whatever else, and you're going to be placing birds onto your tableau onto different rows. These birds have different powers, so whenever you activate a particular row, you can activate all the birds in that row and just continuously get whatever they're going to give you. Each bird does something different. There's also bonus cards in this game that will give you points at the end of the game and different things like that. Now, I will warn you that the Oceania expansion adds a lot more stuff to the game. The European expansion typically just added more cards, whereas the Oceania expansion adds a whole lot more. There's a new food type called nectar, for example. There are new bird cards. There's even the player boards have been changed a bit to give players new options. So yeah, there's new dice and all that stuff. So I will warn you, like, if you found core game Wingspan to be a bit intimidating, then you may want to hold off on the Oceania expansion. However, if you are comfortable with the Oceania expansion, or with the core game rather, then you may want to take a look at the Oceania expansion. Because, well, like I said, it adds a whole lot more to the game. Now, rather than actually play a game, I want to take you through the tutorial because it kind of outlines everything, which is kind of nice. I'm going to go ahead and just start it off real quick. Okay. So the computer here will sort of guide us as we go. I'm going to go ahead and skip some of the fluff here. So the Oceania expansion features a host of new possibilities. I've prepared the board so we can get acquainted with them. Let's start by going to the habitat overview. As you can see, the Oceania expansion provides new boards with new habitat actions. The second leftmost slot now comes with an improved action, and it'll go over what that is in a moment. The Oceania board introduces a new option. Selected slots in the forest or water biomes allow you to spend food to reset the bird feeder before gaining dice, or to reset the card tray before drawing a card. So, as you can see on these highlighted sections of a player board, you can now discard food in order to refresh cards and food from their respective areas. So that's a new thing that they've added. There are also new optional bonus conversions that let you trade resources for dice, which is food, eggs, or cards. So you can actually convert things, which is kind of cool. Let's go ahead and close that down. Okay, so this is like the main thing of the Oceania expansion, nectar. It is a completely new type of food, and it acts like a wild for all intents and purposes. It says here, each player starts with one nectar in their supply. Nectar is a powerful type of food, a wild food that can be used in place of any other food type when playing a bird. You cannot use this wild property in only a single case: when activating a bird's power that uses a particular type of food. So, for example, if a bird power mentions that you have to use grain, or you have to use a berry or fish, then you can't spend the nectar. But if you're buying a bird, you can then use the nectar to in the place of a wild. Okay? The kicker with the nectar is that you lose all of your nectar at the end of the round. You lose it after the round end powers have been activated, but before game end powers, so plan your spending carefully. Okay, so let's practice using the nectar. Play the gray warbler. Okay, so we're just going to do that. Oh, this one. I can read. It's a great opportunity to use nectar to pay its cost. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner of the gray warbler card, it says a berry slash caterpillar slash wheat grain, whatever. Instead, I could just spend a nectar. I would normally have to spend one resource, one of those three, to pay for that bird, but instead I could just pay a nectar. And there you go. And the amount of resources I have are on the right-hand side of the screen. All right, so I have to pay an egg in order to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just select that bird. And as you can see on this particular row where you're playing birds, if there are any egg silhouettes above a space, you have to spend eggs in addition to the typical resources on a card in order to play it. All right, I'll go ahead and do that. Here you can see the spent nectar space. This is where all spent nectar are gathered. So this is interesting because as you spend nectar on particular rows in your habitat, you'll keep a running tally of this nectar. So whenever you're paying for a card, when you're discarding a resource, when activating a bird's power, or using an optional bonus conversion, or a player mat action, nectar will be accumulated on that row. So the forest biome has a nectar total. This desert biome, or whatever that is, fields, has a nectar total. The water biome has a nectar total. Okay. At the end of the game, you will receive additional points for each habitat where you have spent more nectar than other players. So you are highly encouraged to get nectar whenever possible because you want to spend that nectar so that you can get majority bonus by, just continuously spending it. Pay attention to the stars next to your spent nectar spaces. They will help you track if you are in the lead. A gold star means you have spent the most nectar. A silver star means you are second. Okay. If you ever see a split like this, that means you are tied with another player. All right, so let's continue with our action. The gray warbler allows you to play a second bird, lowering its cost by 1 egg. Let's go ahead and use the power to play Kia, which we'll do. Okay, so like with other food, you can spend 2 different food in order to pay for that one. So, for example, if you need a rat in this case, let's say that I needed a rat or whatever, and I didn't have a rat, then I could spend. I would typically be able to spend 2 resources in place of that rat. Well, you can do the same thing with nectar. Some birds have a nectar cost, but if you don't have the nectar available in your resource area, you can just use 2 different food types. Or the same 2 food types. 2 berries, for example, or whatever. So to spend 2 food in place of the nectar, you can totally do that, even though it's a wild. All right. The Kia allows you to draw cards. Draw 1 and use all remaining nectar to draw an additional card. Doing so allows you to spend all the nectar before the round ends. Okay, so I'm going to draw that. And, okay, I'm going to go ahead and discard all of my nectar, because nectar goes away at the end of the round anyway, so it's saying you might as well spend it. All right, so I'm going to draw some extra cards. It says I drew 5, and I get to choose 1 to keep. I guess we'll choose that one, because why not? All right. And some of these are, part of the new expansion, the OE. If you see an OE on the top left of a card, that's the Oceania expansion. That's unique to that expansion. All right, so the Oceania expansion also comes with new end-of-round goals, including one that's quite atypical. No goal. Yeah, it's a new one. No goal means that no goal is scored at the end of the round, but also that you have 1 more action cube in each subsequent round. So it's just a way of, instead of scoring points, you get more actions for the future rounds. That's kind of cool. Okay. See, in this round, you have 6 actions instead of 5. You see a little +1 there. All right. All right, so it looks like they're going to show me a new feature. Activate activate that to check one of them out. All right, so we're going to click on that space. Choose food from the bird feeder. Okay, so it wants me to reset the bird feeder by spending this action. That was one of the things I mentioned earlier. Some spaces allow you to spend food in order to reset bird feeders or to reset the card row, that kind of thing. All right, so we've reset the bird feeder. All right, and we're going to draw nectar. All right. We have activated the superb lyrebird. Its ability allows us to copy the ability of any bird from a previous player. It's another unique Oceania expansion bird. Okay. And this is the previous player on the top of the screen, that blue player. The next player is the green one. And you can see it. It's like a book from left to right. All right. Go ahead and click on that. Click through. The eagle's ability allows us to hunt down a new type of bird, a flightless bird. Yes, that's a new type of bird in the Oceania expansion, a flightless bird. Flightless birds have an asterisk symbol next to the wingspan field. The wingspan of a flightless bird is wild. This means that when drawn using a skull power that checks a bird's wingspan, the skull power is always successful. So it's just a way of scoring those, various wingspan checks. These flightless birds will act as wilds toward that, which is kind of cool. Their wingspan can take on any value when scoring one of the new cards. That gives points for arranging birds in order of wingspan. So if you have one of those cards, it doesn't matter which slot your flightless bird occupies in the habitat. Yes, so there is a new card in this game, a new scoring card that scores for having birds in wingspan order, maybe from lowest to highest, for example. All right. Let's go ahead and click through this. Say goodbye to the emu. All right. Let's jump to the final round. Gain food from the bird feeder. Okay. We are now on the last turn of the game's last round. Go to the wet biome and draw a card. So we're going to click on this action here. And use the new action and spend food to reset the tray. This is another example of a new space. Spend food to reset all of the cards in the card row. So we're going to go ahead and spend that little grain/wheat that we've got. Okay, we want to take all of them, but we can only choose 2 of them. But we can use this action, spend a nectar or an egg to draw a new card in addition to that. So we're going to spend a nectar, and now we can take all 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. And you'll note that 2 of them are part of the new expansion as well. The Splendored Fairy Wren and the Rufous Owl. Those are new. Okay, we'll pause for a second. I want to show you a new end-of-round goal, beaks pointing right. As if there weren't enough symbols on these cards already, they've added a new one. You may have noticed if you take a look at all the birds. Take a look at all the birds. There's beaks pointing left and beaks pointing right. Some of them have, beaks pointing left and right, So certain end-of-round goals will reference these. Note the new icon on the bird that appears if this goal is active. Thanks to drawing all cards from the tray, you now have cards with each possible beak arrangement in your hand. So let's a quick look at that. We can continue. Activate the Pukeko and lay eggs on one adjacent bird. Remember that adjacent birds are also immediately above and below this bird. Okay, so guess we'll just click through. There we go. Beaks pointing right. So we scored points for beaks pointing right. Okay, we're nearly at the end of the game. Now we can acquaint ourselves with a new power type, Game End. For example, the Australian magpie. Discard 1 egg from each bird in this row and column that has an egg on it, excluding this bird. For each discarded egg, cache 2 grain/wheat from the supply on this bird. All right, so birds with a game end power activate after the last round is finished. The round end powers have been activated and all unused nectar has been discarded. Choose the Australian magpie to use its power. All right, we'll hit check mark because we have 2 eggs on this noisy miner. So that 2 eggs is going to convert to 4 food. So cache all. All right, so now the game will also count for nectar. And again, players that have spent the most nectar in the 3 rows will score extra points. The player that spends the most nectar in a given habitat gets 5 points. The second place gets 2 points. In the case of a tie, the points are added and divided amongst the players. All right, so we finished the tutorial, and that's that. So that was a quick look at all the different new things that are in this particular expansion. My concern is the nectar seems to be incredibly powerful. There's almost no reason never to take the nectar because A, it's a wild resource, and B, you're trying to get that majority by spending the most nectar. And yes, there is a risk that if you don't spend it by the end of the round, it's gone. So there's that. But like, why would you never? There's probably a couple of instances where you may want to choose a regular food over nectar, but it becomes more luck based in my opinion at that point. I feel like, if there are no checks and balances, then players will always choose the nectar. What if one player just consistently rolls nectars and always gets the nectar? They're going to have a wild resource and they're going to have majority when they spend it. So, I'm a little concerned that the nectar mechanic just rewards the player that manages to get the most of it. And I'm a little concerned that there may be a runaway gamer leader kind of thing going on there. That being said, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the new cards. One thing I don't like about the digital expansions or the digital game in general is that in order to see the birds, you have to have had to see them or played them in the game. Like all of the cards start face down. I would love the ability to just see all of this unlocked so I can actually show you all the different cards from the different expansions. Hey Vince, before I buy this, I want to see all the Oceania cards just to see what they do. Well, I can't do that unless I've played and seen all of them. You know what I mean? I wish there was a way to unlock all of the birds so that I can see everything. It would have been nice. As far as I can tell, there's no way to do that here. So I think that's a missed opportunity. I get, some players may go, well, it's achievement hunting. You got to keep playing the game until you unlock them all. And I get the appeal of that, but some of us don't have the time to do that. So I would much rather just click a button, unlock them all, and show them all off to you. You know what I mean? But, so it goes. So that's one big complaint that I have with the digital game. But if you are, going to play this game, you could totally you can mix and match the expansions. You can use both the European and the Oceania together. You can forego using the European and just use the Oceania. So you can mix and match to your heart's content. So yeah, Wingspan is a fantastic game already. I will just say that. It's a fantastic game already. If you want to one-up it, then definitely check out the Oceania expansion. Just keep in mind, some of the new mechanics may take some getting used to, and I think playtime is going to increase because of all the extra stuff that you can think about. Well, this is Vince. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you all next time. Take care.